Hey everyone, Chaps here, and yep, we're doing it again. Let's beat this dead horse. As you can tell by the title, this one is about the rumored Marcus Fenix Collection. Last year I made a video discussing why I didn't think we'd see one, and actually, wow, that was 2 years ago. 2 years ago I made a video about why I didn't think we'd see one, and anyway, most of that is still true, that still stands about why I don't think that we're going to see one, but let's move beyond that. Ignoring some of the evidence that points to why it's unlikely, why do I personally believe that there shouldn't be one? And actually, before diving into all that, I feel like I need to clarify something. I would love to see a Fenix Collection. I would totally play the crap out of a Fenix Collection. I just don't think it's the right move right now. So I'm going to say there's only two scenarios that I think where a Fenix Collection would make sense. The first one is if Gears were to launch on PlayStation. I'll say that I seriously doubt that's going to happen anytime soon, if ever. But yeah, if it did, a collection would be a great way to introduce some new players to the franchise. The second case would be if the Coalition released a standalone multiplayer game as the true, flagship multiplayer experience. That's opposed to, having the traditional, having multiplayer and campaign and everything all in one game. If they released a true flagship multiplayer experience and then outsourced a collection to some other studio that maybe just had campaign in it or something like that, like a smaller collection. I mean, I guess the Coalition could do both themselves, but I'm not really sure if they have the bandwidth. But, okay. Why don't I think that a collection really makes sense? And honestly, it's really the same main points that I brought up for years and that other people have brought up. But let's start with unification. In other words, keeping the population together. Not only in the same game, but also not spreading people across too many playlists. But yeah, keeping them in the same game. If the Coalition continues to release this mainline game that has PvP and PvE aspects, then a Fenix Collection is just not going to compete with that. I'm sorry, but Gears is not Halo. Gears was big, but it was never Halo big. Even Halo struggled to keep support across the population across multiple games. But hey, what if there wasn't Gears 6 or whatever for the game to compete with, and TC just funneled everyone into a Fenix Collection? My first question is, okay, cool, what's included in that? I would assume all of the game modes and all of the maps. They probably, if they're doing that one game and not a Gear 6, they probably also need to have, Campaign, Horde, and Beast, Overrun. They probably wouldn't do Escape because that's not really part of a collection. But, okay, what about mechanics? Are they going to let you change between Gears 1, 2, and 3 mechanics? Or maybe they'd push their own unified mechanics. That's going to be, much easier. They just have one set of mechanics to monitor and update. But no, that feels different than the classic games. Okay, what about using the mechanics from each game on their respective modes and maps? Well, one, that's a lot of combinations, but also those feel dated and could probably use a refresh. Not to mention that many people weren't actually happy with the final state of some of the games. But no, we need it to be classic, so we can't have TC doing their take on it, right? Alright, fine. So they figure something out on that. They cross that one off the list. That's no longer an issue. What about playlist? Honestly, I think they could figure something out here, but it might be difficult. Again, they're no Halo. They don't have the population for an insane number of people playing. So you don't have that population, and you can't just split it into, a million different playlists. If you want to play Gears 2 Guardian, people love that. Well, tough luck. There's not going to be enough granularity in the playlist in order for you to do that, let alone making sure that you have the Gears 2, settings or mechanics. To have that, you'd really need to have a server browser and some serious private match options, which I gotta say would be pretty dope, and I'd love that. But then again, myself and I'd argue most people just want to matchmake. As we've seen with any live service game as well, private matches is just not the way to be efficient. A lot of people want to be efficient in terms of earning rewards and stuff like that. Alright, so I could go on and on here, but it just summarizes as it's complicated, right? Just how they organize that game. the population's so spread out, and then what they actually put in the game, it gets very complicated. And you know what comes with complication? Money. Lots of money. A game of this scale would be super expensive for them to make, both to create and to support it. Like, also talking about support and making the game, like, think about how buggy Gears 4 and Gears 5 were at launch. You want the Coalition to pack 3 times as much content in a game and have it launch smoothly? I just need to emphasize again, though, that the Coalition and Microsoft are companies. They need to make a profit. And not just make a profit, but more of a profit than the alternatives. But, alright, I'm not going to get into the whole opportunity cost argument. That's more of a why I don't think we'll see the Fenix Collection, and I'm at least trying to stay a little more focused on why I don't think we need one. But, I mean, I guess on that same note, I think of opportunity cost as my perspective as a fan. I would much rather see what is next. I want to see what's next in the story, or even some side story. I want to see what the Coalition has in store for PvP and PvE. How are they going to iterate and evolve the series? I loved the old games, but I've spent days, weeks, or probably months of playtime on them. I would love to relive some of those experiences. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. But not at the cost of something new. Also, it would be a lot easier for them just to bring some classic maps or modes to a new game. Hell, they're smart people at the Coalition. Maybe you don't agree with some of the design decisions that they made, but they're good at technically executing stuff. They could probably have some events where they replicate some of the classic settings from the old games or some of the old mechanics and have an event with, like, here's some Gears 2 style settings playing Guardian on some remade Gears 2 maps. I mean, if they remade some Gears 2 maps. Alright, but that's also kind of a selfish view of everything. I'm someone who's spent an insane amount of hours playing these games, but what about other players? Well, for starters, I'd venture to say that most of the people asking for the Fenix Collection are people who are in the same boat as me, people who have spent tons of time on this. So I gotta ask the questions. 1, what would you expect to be included? Campaign, Horde, Beast, what modes, and what playlist structure? Just let me know down below. I'm curious to see what different people expect to be in a Fenix Collection. What would you be playing in the collection? And I guess the third question is, what would keep you coming back? Like, what would make you stick with the collection rather than just playing it, getting the nostalgia, and then moving on? But, Chaps, what about the new players? Wouldn't a Fenix Collection be a great way to bring them in? I mean, yeah, obviously. And if it launched on PlayStation, where there's a huge new audience, I think that would make a ton of sense. But Gears 1 was already remastered for newer consoles and PC, and Gears 2 and Gears 3 got some upscaling and an FPS boost, so they look great and play great on the newer consoles. I mean, maybe not as good as a remaster, but they still look and play great. They're also playable on xCloud if someone on PC wanted to give the campaign a go. I mean, that's not ideal and definitely not the best for multiplayer, but I'd say it's good enough. Newer players are going to want to catch up on campaign, which you can do on xCloud, it's good enough, and then they're going to want to just play the latest and greatest multiplayer. Sure, some people like the older games and they'd say that is the greatest multiplayer. But the newer games, you can't deny the newer games are a lot more fluid, and without the blinders of nostalgia, I would wager that most people would prefer a more fluid game. If you gave any Gears game, to any fan who hasn't played the series before and let them play them, they would gravitate towards the newer games just because they feel more fluid. So, yeah, I think, honestly, playing the games on xCloud for the PC people is good enough to bring the new people into the series. So, sorry, talking about the PC community, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the opportunities for the modding community. Did I say community? Community, the modding community. So I'll just say, yeah, there's a ton of potential, and we really missed an opportunity without having that solid opportunity, or like modding opportunity on the PC experience. And you know what? Just make a solid modding experience for the next game. What we need is a great environment for mod support. There's no reason that needs to be part of a collection. Alright, so I've gone on long enough now. I'll continue down in the comments if anyone wants to keep chatting, but I just jotted down my notes and I got to the end of them, basically. So, summarizing the main points, yeah, I would love to see a Fenix Collection. I just don't think the size of the community could really support it like Halo. The game would be extremely complicated and quite likely be very different from what people want or expect. And probably most importantly, at least most importantly to me, is the opportunity cost. Both from the perspective of TC making money, not really the point of this video, but more to the point, the cost in the sense that we'd be stuck, so to speak, reliving the past rather than getting these potential new experiences. But again, that's just my opinion. I am happy to discuss further. Also, I'll call out that this topic was a suggestion from the comments. If you have other topics that you want to see discussed, just let me know and I'll do my best. I'll throw in a last note here, just a huge shout out to Jess, who has been making all of the thumbnails for the channel. I told her I was making this video and I kind of thought it was, like kicking a dead horse, so I thought a gear kicking a dead horse would be kind of funny, and she totally delivered. I make these unplanned videos occasionally, and I just really appreciate having a friend who can help out with the graphics. So yeah, if you haven't already, please consider liking and subscribing if you enjoyed this. Thanks for watching, everyone, and I will catch you next time. See ya.